The Galactic Coalition vessel Eternal Harmony drifted silently through the void, its sensors sweeping the ancient debris field. Commander Tajan stood on the bridge, his posture rigid as the scan results appeared. High Counselor Kyungni, we found something unusual, he reported. An intact vessel of unknown origin. Through the view screen, a massive dark shape floated among the asteroids. Angular, utilitarian, and bristling with what appeared to be primitive weapon ports. The ship bore faded markings. UES, INVYCTUS. Minimal power readings, Lieutenant Doha announced. Technology appears, archaic. Kyungni's lips curled into a smile. Bring it in. The Science Division will enjoy this curiosity. Should we approach with caution? Tajan asked. It's a relic, Commander, Kyungni dismissed. Nothing more. The Eternal Harmony adjusted its course, moving with smooth precision toward the derelict ship. The Coalition vessel was a marvel of technology, sleek, gleaming, and powered by quantum drives that barely made a sound. Next to it, this ancient craft looked like a crude metal box. Commander Tajan wasn't convinced. He watched the approaching ship with narrowed eyes. Doha, run another scan. Focus on those weapon ports. Lieutenant Doha touched her control panel, her 6 fingers moving swiftly. The ports appear inactive, Commander. Most are sealed with space debris. I detect no targeting systems online. High Counselor Kyungni walked to the front of the bridge, her silver uniform catching the light. The Coalition has mapped 97% of known space, Commander. We've cataloged every spacefaring civilization. Yet this vessel bears markings from no known species. Human, said Science Officer Jawan, looking up from his station. The writing is human. Kyungni turned to him. Humans. That backwater species from the Orion Arm. Yes, Counselor, if I'm translating correctly. UES stands for United Earthship, but that's impossible. Why? Tajan asked. Because humans only achieved basic space travel 300 years ago. They have small colonies in their home system, but nothing like this. Jawan gestured at the screen. This ship is a warship, and its design, it's unlike anything in our records. Kyungni laughed. Perhaps we underestimated them. But not by much. Look at it. Metal hull, chemical propulsion traces, primitive. The bridge crew fell silent as the Eternal Harmony extended its tractor beam. The blue light stretched out, enveloping the ancient ship in its glow. Slowly, the human vessel began to move. Any response? Tajan asked. None, replied Communications Officer Mena. I've sent standard greeting protocols on all frequencies. No answer. It's likely abandoned, Kyungni said, or the crew is long dead. The tractor beam pulled the ship closer, and now they could see details they had missed before. Scorched hull plates, impact craters that could only come from weapons fire. This ship had seen battle. There's another reading, Doha said suddenly. Very faint. It could be life support. Tajan leaned forward. Life support. After all this time. Impossible, Kyungni said. The power requirements would be. There's more, Doha continued, her voice rising with excitement. I'm detecting a form of suspended animation technology. Crude, but there may be survivors aboard. The bridge erupted in surprise murmurs. Kyungni silenced them with a raised hand. If there are humans alive on that ship, we need to know why they're here, so far from their home world. I recommend a boarding party, Tajan said. Small, well-armed. Kyungni considered this. No weapons. We're representatives of the Galactic Coalition. We come in peace. She smiled at the old saying. Besides, what threat could primitive humans pose to us? Tajan wanted to argue but knew better. The High Counselor's word was final. Prepare a boarding party, Kyungni ordered. Jawan, you'll lead. Take Doha and a medical team. As the chosen crew members left to prepare, Tajan moved closer to Kyungni. Counselor, with respect, we know almost nothing about this vessel. The Coalition protocols for first contact. This isn't first contact, Commander. Humans are a known species. Primitive, yes, but known. But a human warship, this far from Earth. Taejin pressed. It doesn't make sense. Kyungmi sighed. Your caution is noted, Commander, but consider the scientific value. This could be a missing piece of human history. Perhaps they ventured further than we thought before retreating to their solar system. Taejin nodded, but his unease remained. The boarding party assembled in the launch bay. Jawan checked his equipment one last time. Scanning devices, translation units, and basic medical gear. No weapons, as ordered. This is exciting, Doa said, joining him. A mystery from the past. Yes, Jawan agreed, though he shared some of Taejin's concern. But let's be careful. We don't know what we'll find. Their shuttle detached from the Eternal Harmony and approached the human vessel. Up close, it was even more imposing. A dark giant scarred by time and battle. I'm detecting an entry point, the pilot said. Some kind of airlock. Take us in, Jawan ordered. The shuttle docked with a gentle thud. The team waited as their systems checked the atmosphere inside the human ship. Breathable, Doha announced. Cold, but within safe parameters. Jawan led the way, stepping through the airlock into the darkness beyond. Their lights cut through the gloom, revealing a long corridor of metal and carbon composites. Fascinating construction, Jawan murmured, running his scanner over the walls. Simple materials, but the design is efficient. They moved deeper into the ship, finding no signs of life. Everything was powered down, except for minimal systems keeping the ship intact. This way, Doa said, following her readings. The life support signals are stronger here. They entered a large chamber filled with rows of what looked like metal coffins. Each was connected to a central system by a web of cables and tubes. Cryogenic suspension pods, Jawan said, his voice filled with wonder. I've only seen these in historical archives. Doha approached one of the pods, wiping frost from its small viewing window. She jumped back in surprise. There's someone inside. The team gathered around, shining their lights through the frosted glass. A face looked back at them, eyes closed, skin pale, but unmistakably human. They're alive, Jawan whispered. After all this time. The technology shouldn't work, Doa said, scanning the pod. It's too simple, too crude for long-term preservation. Suddenly, the lights in the chamber flickered on. The team froze as a mechanical voice spoke from hidden speakers. Unauthorized presence detected. Initiating security protocols. Around them, the pods began to hum with increasing power. Displays lit up, showing vital signs strengthening. We need to leave, Jawan said urgently, but as they turned toward the exit, the door slid shut. The ship, Doa said, her eyes wide with fear. It's waking up. On the bridge of the Eternal Harmony alarms began to sound. Power surge from the human vessel, Minna reported. Its systems are activating. Commander Taejin turned to Kyungmi, who was staring at the view screen in disbelief. It seems, High Counselor, he said grimly, that your relic is waking up. Deep within the Invictus, circuits long dormant hummed to life. In the cryobay, Captain Junho's eyes snapped open, his body jerking as the preservation fluid drained away. Status report, he croaked, throat raw from centuries of disuse. Unauthorized boarding in progress, the ship's eye replied. We have been adrift for 327 years, Captain. Junho stood shakily as his crew of 12 awakened around him. Lieutenant Minji checked the internal sensors. Unknown aliens. They believe we're non-functional, she reported. Junho nodded slowly. Let them think that. For now. The preservation fluid continued to drain from his pod, carrying away the special mixture that had kept his cells from aging for over 3 centuries. Captain Junho's muscles screamed in protest as he tried to move. His first steps were unsteady, like a newborn deer trying to walk. "Aria, show me the borders," he commanded, his voice becoming stronger with each word. The ship's AI, Advanced Responsive Intelligence Array, displayed a holographic feed in the center of the cryobay. 6 alien figures moved cautiously through the ship's corridors. They were tall, with smooth bluish skin and 6-fingered hands. Their eyes were large and completely black. "Species unknown," Aria stated. "No match in database." Junho watched them examine the ship with their scanning devices. "What do they want?" "Unknown. They appear to be conducting the scientific survey." Around him, the rest of the crew struggled to their feet. 12 men and women, the minimum needed to operate the Invictus in emergency conditions. They had been the last to enter cryosleep when Earth gave the order to scatter humanity's remaining warships across the galaxy. Lieutenant Minji wiped fluid from her face and joined Junho at the hologram. "Their ship has us in some kind of tractor beam, Captain." "It's massive." "Threat assessment?" Junho asked. Aria's voice was calm and neutral. "Their technology appears advanced, estimated 150 to 200 years beyond Earth's capabilities at time of our departure. And yet, they can't detect that we're awake," Junho mused. "I have isolated our essential systems behind quantum shielding, as per emergency protocols," Aria explained. "They are detecting only minimal power readings from outdated systems." Junho smiled faintly. "Good girl, Aria." Chief Engineer Taehun approached, his movements more steady than the others. He had always adapted quickly to cryosleep. "Captain, I need to check the Invictus's core systems. 300 years is a long time, even with maintenance protocols." "Go. Take Yona with you, but stay hidden from our visitors." Taehun nodded and left with Yona, moving through hidden maintenance tunnels that ran alongside the main corridors. Junho turned to the others. "Kyung-hoon, Jisoo, get to the armory. Make sure our weapons are functional." He looked at the remaining crew members. "Daiho, take Hyejin and Soman to the bridge. Passive systems only. I want to know everything about these aliens without them knowing we're looking." As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Junho stayed with Minji and the 3 remaining crew members, Dr. Yuna, Communications Officer Jinwoo, and Navigator Sunko. "Araya, what's our location?" Junho asked. A star map appeared, replacing the image of the alien borders. "We are in the Cygnus Arm, approximately 15,000 light-years from Earth." Junho's face hardened. "And our mission parameters?" "Mission parameters unchanged. In the event of Earth's fall, preserve human military capability and await further orders." "Have you received any transmissions from Earth or other human ships in the past 327 years?" "Negative, Captain. No authenticated human transmissions detected." The room fell silent. They had all known this was possible, even probable, when they volunteered for the mission. Earth had been losing the war against the Nexus, an enemy whose name they now spoke in hushed tones. Their mission was humanity's insurance policy, a desperate gamble to ensure that even if Earth fell, humans would still have a fighting chance somewhere in the galaxy. "We need to find out what happened," Minji said softly. "To Earth. To everyone. First, we need to deal with our visitors," Junho replied. "Dr. Yuna, what's the crew's physical status?" Yuna checked her medical scanner. As expected after long-term cryosleep, muscle atrophy at 22%, bone density decreased by 18%. Neural pathways are reestablishing normally. We'll be at 60% capability within hours, full capability within days. "We may not have days," Junho said, looking back at the hologram of the aliens. The feed showed the alien team discovering the ship's auxiliary bridge, running their scanners over the darkened consoles. "They're getting close to sensitive areas," Minji warned. "ARIA, initiate Protocol Whisper," Junho ordered. Protocol Whisper initiated, the AI confirmed, deploying nanobots for observation and defense. Throughout the ship, microscopic robots activated, flowing through special conduits built into the Invictus' structure. They gathered around the alien visitors, invisible to their scanners, watching and waiting. "Jinwoo, can you intercept their communications?" Shunho asked. The communications officer was already working at a console. "Their language is unknown, but I'm detecting patterns. Araya is helping with translation. Give me a few minutes." Chunho nodded and turned to Navigator Sungho. "What's our status? Can we break free of their tractor beam if necessary?" "Main engines are in standby mode. Fusion reactors at minimal output," Sungho reported. "We have enough power for a burst to break the tractor beam, but a full escape would require bringing the antimatter drive online. That would take at least 30 minutes. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Junho said. Jinwoo suddenly looked up from his console. "Captain, I've got something." Partial translation coming through. The hologram now showed the alien team's leader speaking into a communication device. A rough translation appeared as text beneath the image. "Human vessel. Confirmed. Crew in stasis. Primitive technology. No threat. Recommend full study." Minji clenched her fists. Primitive. The Invictus was the most advanced warship ever built. 300 years ago, Juno reminded her. "Let them underestimate us. It gives us an advantage." A new alert appeared on the hologram. The aliens were approaching the cryobay. "They're coming here," Dr. Yuna said, alarm in her voice. "Everyone, into the hibernation cells," Junho ordered quickly. "Yuna, make it look like we're still in cryosleep." The crew quickly climbed back into their pods, leaving only the tops open. Yuna programmed the systems to display false readings before hiding herself. "ARIA, dim lights to emergency levels. Make it look like we're just beginning to wake up, but not conscious yet." "Understood, Captain." The lights lowered as the door to the cryobay slid open. 3 aliens entered cautiously, their scanning devices held out before them. They moved among the pods, examining the human crew with scientific curiosity. Chunho lay perfectly still, keeping his breathing shallow. Through slitted eyes, he watched one alien lean over his pod, its face just inches from his own. The creature tilted its head, studying him with those large black eyes. It spoke to its companions, the words now partially translated by Aria's systems. "Life signs stabilizing. Awakening process. Automatic response to our presence. Recommend. Capture for study." The alien reached toward a control panel on Juno's pod. In that moment, Juno made his decision. "Aria," he whispered, too softly for the aliens to hear. "Protocol shade." "Acknowledged." The AI replied directly into a micro-implant in Junho's ear. Throughout the ship, lights flickered and systems powered down, as if suffering a catastrophic failure. The aliens jerked back in surprise as alarms began to sound. "Let them think we're having system failures," Junho whispered to his crew. "Let them think we're helpless." As the aliens hurried from the room to report to their ship, Junho smiled grimly. The game had begun, and the aliens had no idea who they were playing against. "We'll find out what happened to Earth," he promised his crew. "But first, we'll need to deal with our new friends. On our terms." The Invictus hung suspended in the massive docking bay of the Coalition flagship. Around it, an armada of 200 warships gathered. In the Coalition war room, Admiral Sunwoo slammed his fist on the table. The humans refused to cooperate. Kyungmi paced. They claim to be simple refugees, yet their weapon signatures suggest otherwise. Their captain, this Shuno, he mockingly asked if our entire fleet was all we could spare, Taejin added. Sunwoo's eyes narrowed. Deploy the Armada. Show them what real power looks like. In the Invictus Command Center, Shunho watched the enemy ships form attack positions. "They still think we're helpless," Engineer Hanbin observed. "Good," Juno replied. "Prepare full activation sequence." The Invictus no longer looked like a derelict ship. Its hull had been cleaned, its systems humming with power, but only the power the humans wanted the Coalition to see. For 3 weeks, they had played a careful game of half-truths and misdirection. Admiral Sunwoo studied the human vessel on the main screen. It was small compared to the Coalition flagship, perhaps 1/5 the size. Its weapons, what they could detect of them, seemed laughably outdated, yet something about the ship and its crew troubled him. "They're hiding something," he muttered. High Counselor Kyungmi turned to him. "Of course they are. That's why we brought in the fleet." The Coalition had initially welcomed the humans as a curiosity. Ancient travelers in an outdated ship. They'd been given quarters, food, medical treatment. In return, Captain Junho had spun tales of a human colony ship, separated from its fleet, drifting for centuries while its crew slept. They claimed to be simple refugees seeking a new home. But Coalition scientists had examined the Invictus. They found weapon ports too numerous for a colony ship, power signatures that didn't match the engines, and strange, shielded compartments they couldn't scan at all. "Show me the interrogation footage again," Sunwoo ordered. A hologram appeared, showing Captain Junho sitting calmly across from Taejin. The human looked relaxed in his simple uniform, too relaxed for someone facing the might of the Galactic Coalition. "We've been patient, Captain," Taejin said in the recording, "but you haven't been honest with us." Junho smiled. "I've told you what you need to know. We're survivors, nothing more. Your ship is a warship. In dangerous times, even refugees need protection." Taejin leaned forward. "Our scans show weapon systems far beyond what a human colony ship would need. And your power core, our scientists say it could power a city for a century. Your scientists are mistaken." "I don't think they are." Taejin placed a datapad on the table. "We've called in reinforcements. 200 ships. The largest gathering of Coalition military might in 50 years. Junho glanced at the datapad, then looked up with an amused expression. "Only 200. The recording ended. Sunwoo's face darkened with anger. "Arrogance. As if 200 of our most advanced warships aren't enough to crush one ancient human vessel." Commander Taejin cleared his throat. "Admiral, I believe caution is warranted. Something about Captain Junho's confidence doesn't make sense." "I agree," Science Officer Jaewon added. "The humans have been cooperative in some ways, evasive in others. They allowed basic medical examinations, shared stories of Earth, even helped repair minor systems on our ships. While telling us nothing of importance," Kyungmi snapped. "Yes, but why?" Jaewon asked. "It's almost as if they're stalling, learning about us while revealing little themselves." Admiral Sunwoo straightened his uniform. "It doesn't matter. Their games end today. The human ship will be dismantled and studied. The crew will be taken to the Coalition homeworld for proper interrogation." He turned to the communications officer. "Tell all ships to prepare for combat positions. If the humans resist, we will show them no mercy." Aboard the Invictus, Captain Junho watched the Coalition fleet begin to move. The massive ships formed a sphere around the docking bay, cutting off any possible escape route. "They're finally making their move," he said to his crew. Lieutenant Minji nodded. "They waited longer than I expected." "They were studying us," Engineer Hanbin said, checking his monitors, "just as we were studying them." The past weeks had been valuable for the Invictus crew. While pretending to be harmless refugees, they had mapped the Coalition's technologies, learned their language, and discovered their weaknesses. Most importantly, they had repaired systems damaged by centuries of dormancy. "What have we learned about them?" Chunho asked. Communications Officer Jinwoo brought up a display. "The Galactic Coalition is the dominant power in this region. They've conquered or allied with over 200 species. Their technology is advanced. Quantum drives, plasma weapons, neural interfaces. And Earth." Chunho asked the question they all feared. Jinwoo's face fell. "No direct mention in their databases. I found references to a quarantine zone in the Orion Arm, but nothing specific." Chunho nodded grimly. They had suspected as much. If Earth still existed, it was clearly not a power in this part of the galaxy. "Captain," Navigator Sungo called out. "The Coalition flagship is hailing us." On screen, Admiral Sunwoo's face appeared, stern and confident. "Captain Junho, your deception ends now. You will power down your vessel and prepare to be boarded. Your ship will be confiscated. Your crew will be detained for questioning." Junho smiled politely. "Admiral, there seems to be a misunderstanding. We've been honest about our situation. Your weapon signatures say otherwise." Sunwoo snapped. "You have 5 minutes to comply, or we will open fire." The screen went dark. Junho looked at his crew. "Options. We could still try diplomacy," Dr. Yuna suggested. "Offer them something valuable in exchange for our freedom." "They don't want an exchange," Minji said. "They want our ship, our technology." "Could we outrun them?" Junho asked. Engineer Hanbin shook his head. "Not all of them. Their fastest ships could match our standard drive." "What about the L-space drive?" Hanbin hesitated. "It's operational, but we've never tested it after such a long dormancy. The risks are less than facing 200 warships," Junho finished. "Prepare the drive as a last resort." He stood and surveyed his crew. 12 humans, the last known survivors of Earth's military, against an alien armada. "We didn't come this far to surrender," he said quietly. "The Invictus was built for a moment like this." On the Coalition flagship, Taejun watched the human vessel with growing unease. "Admiral, they're not powering down. In fact, I'm detecting new energy signatures." "From where?" Sunwoo demanded. "Our scans showed most of their systems were barely functional." Jawan studied his console with wide eyes. "Sir, those signatures, they were hidden, shielded somehow from our sensors." "Impossible," Kyungmi exclaimed. "Our scanners are the most advanced in the galaxy." A junior officer rushed in. "Admiral, the human ship is changing." On the main screen, the Invictus began to transform. Panels shifted, revealing weapon ports that had been hidden. The hull itself seemed to flow and reconfigure, like liquid metal solidifying into new shapes. "What is this?" Sunwoo whispered. In the Invictus command center, Junho gave the order. "Begin full activation sequence. Bring all systems online." The ship hummed with power as ancient systems awakened. The lights dimmed momentarily, then blazed brighter than before. Around them, the ship continued its transformation. "Adaptive armor at 100%, Hanbin reported. "Quantum shields online. Weapon systems charging." Minji looked up from her station. "Sir, they're targeting us. All 200 ships." Junho nodded calmly. "Let them fire first. I want the galaxy to know who started this." He sat in the captain's chair, his posture relaxed despite the danger. "And Minji, record everything. When we find other human ships, they'll want to know what happened here." On the Coalition flagship, alarms blared as the sensors detected the Invictus's true power. "Energy readings off the scale," Jawan shouted. "Whatever they're powering up, it's beyond anything we've seen." Admiral Sunwoo's confidence crumbled as he watched the small human ship transform into something his scientists had claimed was impossible. "Open fire," he ordered, his voice shaking. "All ships, open fire now." As the Coalition Armada prepared to attack, Junho smiled at his crew. "Remember your training. Remember Earth. And let's show these aliens why humans were the most feared species in the galaxy." The first Coalition energy beams lanced toward the Invictus, beginning a battle that would be remembered for centuries to come. The first Coalition energy blasts splashed harmlessly against the Invictus's suddenly active shields. "Impossible," Kyungmi gasped as the ancient warship's hull began to transform, panels shifting to reveal weapon systems beyond Coalition understanding. The Invictus moved with unexpected speed. Its main cannon fired once, and 3 Coalition ships simply ceased to exist. "All vessels, concentrate fire," Admiral Sunwoo commanded, panic edging his voice. Inside the Invictus, Minji reported calmly, "Quantum torpedoes ready, Captain." "Target their command ships," Juno ordered. "Let's show them why Earth never lost a war." The Coalition fleet's weapons blazed across space, a storm of energy and light converging on the single human vessel. The Invictus seemed to dance among the beams, its movements impossibly quick for a ship of its size. When direct evasion was impossible, the blast struck shields that flared blue but held firm. On the Coalition flagship, chaos reigned. Admiral Sunwoo stared at the tactical display in disbelief as the Invictus carved through his fleet. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Their ship is centuries old." Science Officer Jawan's hands flew across his console. "The technology, it's not what we thought. The weapons aren't chemical or plasma-based. They're using some form of matter conversion technology." In simple terms, Sunwoo shouted as another blast rocked the ship. "They're turning matter into energy and back again," Jawan explained, his voice shaking. "It's theoretical science for us, but they've mastered it." High Counselor Kyungmi gripped the edge of a console as the ship shuddered under another near miss. "You told me they were primitive." "Their outward appearance was primitive," Taejin said. "It was a disguise." Outside, the battlefield was transforming into a graveyard. Coalition ships, each the product of decades of advanced engineering, were being systematically destroyed. The Invictus fired its main cannon again, and a group of 5 cruisers vanished in a flash of light so bright it temporarily blinded the flagship's external sensors. Inside the Invictus, Captain Junho stood calmly at the center of the bridge, watching the battle unfold on the main display. His crew worked with practiced efficiency, each movement precise despite their recent awakening from cryosleep. "Shields holding at 93%, reported Engineer Hanbin. "Minor damage to port sensor array." "They're adapting their weapons," Minji warned. "Trying to match our shield frequency." Shunho nodded. "ARIA, implement random shield modulation. Show them something new every 30 seconds. "Acknowledged, Captain," the ship's AI responded. "Shield patterns randomizing." Navigator Sungho looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm detecting a new type of ship entering the battle. Heavier armor, larger weapons." On the display, a massive vessel twice the size of the Coalition flagship moved into position. Its hull was dark and angular, bristling with weapon ports that glowed with gathering energy. "Their dreadnought," Junho mused. "Good. I was wondering when they'd bring out their best." Communications Officer Jinwoo intercepted a transmission. "Sir, they're ordering all remaining ships to form up around the dreadnought. They're going to concentrate their fire." Junho's expression remained calm, but his eyes glinted with determination. "Perfect. That makes our job easier." He turned to his weapon officer. "Minji, prepare the crucible." A hush fell over the bridge. The crucible was the Invictus's ultimate weapon, designed as humanity's last resort against extinction. "Sir," Minji said quietly, "the crucible hasn't been tested since activation. The power requirements will drain our reserves, I know." Junho's voice was firm. "But I want them to understand exactly what they're facing." On the Coalition dreadnought, Fleet Commander Hyuk watched with cold fury as his forces regrouped around his ship. Nearly 40 vessels had already been destroyed, with dozens more crippled or retreating. "Status of the human vessel?" he demanded. His tactical officer studied the readings. "Shields still holding. They've taken minimal damage, but their energy output is fluctuating. They may be reaching their limits." Hyuk smiled thinly. "Good. Prepare the graviton cannon. We'll crush their shields and tear that ship apart." The dreadnought's main weapon, a massive array running the length of the vessel, began to glow with ominous green light. The graviton cannon could generate a localized field so intense it would compress a target ship to the size of a small asteroid. On the flagship, now retreating to a safer distance, Admiral Sunwoo watched anxiously. "The dreadnought will finish them. Nothing can withstand the graviton cannon." Taejin wasn't convinced. Sir, I recommend continued caution. These humans have surprised us at every turn. Back on the Invictus, Shunho watched the dreadnought's weapon charging. Area. Analysis. Gravitational weapon, the eye replied, designed to create a crushing field. Our shields will not withstand a direct hit at full power. Time until their weapon is ready. Approximately 45 seconds. Shunho nodded. And the crucible. Charged and ready, Minji reported. Targeting systems locked on the dreadnought. Sir, Hanbin said urgently, using the crucible will drain our power reserves. We'll be vulnerable for at least 2 minutes afterward. Then we better not miss, Juno replied. He opened a channel to the entire crew. This is the captain. Brace for crucible deployment. Throughout the ship, the 12 crew members secured themselves at their stations. The lights dimmed as power was diverted to the weapon. On the bridge, Juno sat in his command chair, fingers touching the special control panel that had appeared from its hidden compartment. ARIA, begin historical record. Let it show that the Galactic Coalition fired first, and that the Invictus defended itself as per its mission parameters. Recording initiated. ARIA confirmed. Chunho looked at the image of the massive dreadnought, now surrounded by its remaining escort ships. They wanted to know who we are. Let's show them. On the dreadnought, alarms suddenly blared. The tactical officer looked up in confusion. Sir, the human ship is changing again. The Invictus's hull began to glow with lines of blue light that spread across its surface like veins. The front of the ship split open, revealing a swirling vortex of energy that seemed to bend light around it. What is that? Fleet Commander Hook demanded. Unknown, sir. Energy readings are impossible. Fire the graviton cannon now. The dreadnought's weapon discharged, sending a wave of gravitational force toward the Invictus. At the same instant, the human ship fired the crucible. From the Invictus erupted not a beam or a missile, but a ripple in space itself. Where it passed, matter simply ceased to exist. The gravitational wave from the dreadnought's cannon met this ripple and was absorbed, adding to its power. The ripple continued outward, cutting through the coalition fleet like a scythe. Ships caught in its path didn't explode. They simply unraveled, their very atoms coming apart in silent, terrible beauty. The dreadnought itself began to disintegrate from bow to stern, its massive hull peeling away layer by layer. Fleet Commander Cook had only moments to witness the destruction before his ship was gone. In seconds, over half the remaining coalition fleet had vanished. The survivors, faced with a weapon they couldn't comprehend, broke formation and fled in panic. On the flagship, now at the edge of the battle, Admiral Sunwoo stared at the empty space where the dreadnought had been. What? What was that? Jawan's voice was barely a whisper. It altered the fundamental forces holding matter together. Nothing in our science suggests this is possible. On the Invictus, the lights returned to normal as the crucible powered down. The bridge crew worked quickly to redistribute the remaining energy to essential systems. Status report, Juno ordered. Shields at 28%, Hanbin reported. Main power reserves depleted. Auxiliary systems online. The crucible performed better than expected. Minji studied her tactical display. 87 enemy ships destroyed. 63 in retreat. The rest are disabled or maintaining position at long range. Junho nodded and stood, looking at the stars visible through the view screen. Open a channel to the coalition flagship. When Admiral Sunwoo's face appeared, pale with shock, Junho spoke calmly. This demonstration was necessary but regrettable. The Invictus is not an aggressor, Admiral. We did not come seeking war. What are you? Sunwoo asked, his voice hollow. We are humanity's guardians, Junho replied. The last line of defense for a species you know nothing about. He paused, then added, we will leave your space peacefully if allowed, or we can continue this battle until no coalition ships remain. The choice is yours. The silence that followed told Junho everything he needed to know. The revelation was complete. The galaxy had just learned why, even after centuries, the human warship Invictus deserved its name. Unconquered, the Invictus drifted silently among the debris of the once mighty Coalition Armada. Of 200 ships, only 11 had escaped. On the view screen, transmissions from dozens of worlds appeared, planets long oppressed by the Coalition, now offering thanks and alliance to these ancient humans. Set course for Earth coordinates, Juno ordered. Let's see if home still exists. As the Invictus prepared to jump, Minji approached her captain. The Coalition database mentioned other human ships, she said quietly, similar to ours, appearing at the galaxy's edge. Juno smiled for the first time in 3 centuries. Then we're not alone, he said. And the galaxy is about to remember why they should have left humanity in peace. The bridge was quiet as the crew took in the scene before them. Through the main view screen, they could see the floating remains of what had been the pride of the Galactic Coalition. Shattered hulls, twisted metal, and silent engines scattered across space like fallen leaves. Engineer Handon worked at his console, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the display. Power reserves at 62% and climbing. Shields regenerating. The crucible is offline, but all other weapon systems are functional. Junho nodded, standing at the center of the bridge. The battle had been swift and decisive. Once the dreadnought was destroyed, most of the remaining Coalition ships had surrendered or fled. The few that continued fighting were quickly disabled. Any sign of pursuit? He asked. Navigator Sungho shook his head. None, Captain. The surviving Coalition vessels are regrouping near their home system. They're maintaining communication silence. They're afraid, Communications Officer Jinwoo observed. And confused. The messages I'm intercepting between their ships are full of questions about what we are and where we came from. Let them wonder, Junho said. Fear and mystery can be powerful allies. Lieutenant Minji studied the tactical display, where the locations of other nearby star systems were highlighted. Many were sending transmissions directly to the Invictus. It seems we've made quite an impression, she said. These messages are coming from at least 20 different species. All were under Coalition control. Junho moved to her side, examining the incoming transmissions. What are they saying? They're offering thanks, resources, alliance. Some are declaring independence from the Coalition. Others are asking for protection. Minji looked up at him. They're calling us liberators. We didn't come here to liberate anyone, Junho said quietly. We came to survive. Perhaps we can do both, Dr. Yuna suggested. She had been silent since the battle, treating the few minor injuries the crew had sustained. These people have lived under Coalition rule for generations. They know this region of space, its dangers and resources. We need allies, Captain. Junho considered this. They had been adrift for 327 years. Earth might be gone. Their mission parameters allowed for establishing a human presence elsewhere if returning home proved impossible. Select the 3 most promising transmissions, he told Jinwoo. Species with technology and resources that might help us. We'll respond to them before we depart. As Jinwoo worked on this task, Junho turned to Araya. Show me what you found in the Coalition databases about other human ships. The AI's calm voice filled the bridge. During my infiltration of Coalition systems, I discovered reports dating back approximately 50 years. They describe encounters with vessels of unknown origin at the edges of explored space. The descriptions match Earth military design principles. A series of images appeared on the main screen. Blurry sensor readings and long-range scans of ships similar to the Invictus. Different models, but unmistakably human in design. There were 12 others, Minji said softly. 12 ships like ours, sent in different directions when Earth was falling. The last fleet, Junho nodded. Scattered to ensure humanity's survival, no matter the cost. The crew fell silent, each lost in memories of that final day. Earth had been losing its war against the Nexus for years. The enemy had pushed humanity back to their home system, destroying colonies and outposts. The last fleet was a desperate gamble. 13 of Earth's most advanced warships, each with a skeleton crew, sent in different directions with orders to hide, survive, and one day return. The reports show no direct engagements. ARIA continued. These ships appeared briefly, scanned coalition territory, and disappeared before they could be intercepted. They're searching, Navigator Sungo realized, just like us, looking for signs of human survival. Junho felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: hope. If they followed the same protocols we did, they would have established hibernation cycles, waking periodically to check their surroundings before returning to cryosleep, which means they could be anywhere by now, Engineer Hanbin said. But still out there, Junho responded, still carrying out their mission. Communications Officer Jinwoo looked up from his station. Captain, I've selected 3 promising contacts: a mining confederation with resource-rich planets, a species known for advanced shield technology, and a nomadic trader group with extensive star charts of this region. Open channels to all 3, Junho ordered. Tell them we accept their thanks, but our stay will be brief. We're searching for our own kind. As Jinwoo relayed the message, Dr. Yuna approached Junho. The crew performed admirably during the battle, but we still need time to fully recover from cryosleep. A short rest at a friendly port would be beneficial. Junho nodded. Agreed. We'll make one stop before setting course for Earth. Enough time to gather information and complete our recovery. On the view screen, the face of an alien appeared, reptilian features with feathered crests around its head. The universal translator interpreted its clicks and whistles. The Talon Confederation welcomes the humans of the Invictus. Your defeat of the Coalition has freed 100 worlds. Name your price, and it shall be yours. Junho stepped forward. We seek information, not payment. Tell us of Earth in the Orion Arm. Has your kind heard of it? The alien's expression changed, though it was hard to read on its non-human face. Earth is known to us only in legend. The Forbidden Zone, the Coalition calls it. No ships are permitted within 10 light years of that system, by ancient treaty. Murmurs spread across the bridge. Junho leaned forward. Treaty? With whom? Unknown. The treaty predates our contact with the Coalition. All we know is that the Coalition fears what lies in that region of space. After the communication ended, the bridge fell silent again. Navigator Sungho was the first to speak. A forbidden zone around Earth. That suggests someone is protecting it. Or containing something within it, Minji countered. Either way, Junho said, we have our heading. He turned to Hanbin. How long until the L space drive is ready? 6 hours, Captain. I want to run full diagnostics after the battle. You have 4, Junho replied. He addressed the entire crew. Rest in shifts. When we jump, I want everyone at their best. As the crew dispersed to their duties, Minji remained with Junho at the center of the bridge. She had been his first officer for 5 years before the last fleet mission, and she knew him better than anyone. You think Earth survived, she said. It wasn't a question. I think something survived, Junho corrected. The Coalition is afraid of that region for a reason, and if other ships from the last fleet have been seen, they must have found something worth protecting. Minji nodded, then hesitated before speaking again. The crucible performed beyond specifications, Captain. The damage it caused. I've never seen anything like it. It was designed as a deterrent, Junho said quietly, to be used only when all other options were exhausted. And now, the galaxy knows we have it. Yes, which means our journey home just became more dangerous. He turned to look at her directly. But also more urgent. If Earth still exists, they need to know what's coming. 4 hours later, the Invictus broke orbit from the small moon where it had briefly docked. Resources had been transferred, information exchanged, and the crew had enjoyed a few hours on solid ground. Now they were ready to continue their mission. On the bridge, Shunho watched as the stars filled the view screen. Somewhere among them was Earth, or whatever remained of it. L space drive charged and ready, Hanbin reported. All systems green, Minji added. Course plotted for the Orion arm. Junho took his seat in the command chair. RIA, record in the ship's log. Day 119,528 since departure. The Invictus remains operational. Mission parameters unchanged. Locate Earth or human survivors. We have encountered advanced alien civilizations and confirmed possible sightings of other ships from the last fleet. We now return to Earth coordinates to complete our mission. He paused, then added, personal note. If other ships from the last fleet have survived, then humanity's gamble paid off. We are not extinct. We are scattered, but we endure. And now we return home. Chunho looked at his crew, 12 humans, the last he knew for certain were alive. But perhaps not the last after all. Engage L space drive, he ordered. The stars on the view screen stretched into lines as the Invictus leaped into faster-than-light travel, carrying its crew toward Earth and the answers they had waited 3 centuries to find. Behind them, news of the ancient human warship that had defeated an armada spread across the galaxy like wildfire. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, other ships from the last fleet heard the whispers and changed course, converging on a signal they had waited generations to receive. Humanity was coming home.